Hello, everybody. It's a pleasure to discuss our vision on food allergies with you. We all wonder about this question: why allergies exist, what are they good for, and why are they so prevalent, increasingly so in the modern world. And this is what our mission is, to understand the root cause of food allergies so that we can understand how to treat it and how to prevent it. First, we ask for any pathological condition. We always ask a question of what does it represent from biological perspective? And every disease is some abnormal version of some normal physiological process. And to understand any disease, we need to know what the normal counterpart is, and because that will give us the intuition of what might be going wrong in a given disease. And for many diseases, we can say that they are actually manifestations of defenses, and many diseases can be due to either excessive or insufficient expression of various defense systems of the body, such as the immune system and other types of defenses. So the allergy traditionally is thought to be a mistargeted pathological response of the immune system to something that's present in the environment, but is innocuous, is not harmful, and the immune system for some reason makes a mistake of attacking it. And while clearly there is something wrong with the immune system in the context of allergies, but all allergic reactions also share something in common, and that is they all have features of a defense against noxious substances, because all symptoms of allergies, such as sneezing, coughing, running nose, tears, itching, vomiting, all of them have in common the fact that they all have to do with removing something harmful from the body. And just like for immune defenses against pathogens, we can think of a normal function of immune defenses, or when immune defenses are insufficient, we have immunodeficiencies, or when they're excessive, we have immunopathologies. And similarly, we think with allergies that there is a normal range of allergic defenses, which is a normal physiological function of this type of immune responses. And it's only when they're exaggerated, it results in allergic diseases. And by the way, we can also predict that there is also another version of diseases that currently doesn't have a name, that is due to insufficient expression of allergic defenses. And so with that perspective, we think that what we call allergies is actually an exaggerated version of a normal defense against something that may be harmful in the environment. And the key aspect of such defense is expulsion from the body. And expulsion is a well appreciated defense against toxins and irritants. If we consume something that contains toxins that induces vomiting, that's a protective reaction. If we inhale particles, we sneeze and cough to get them out of the lungs. And if there is something comes in contact with our skin that causes irritation, it causes itching, for the purpose of which is to remove whatever the irritant is. And so we think allergies are exacerbations of these physiological defense systems, which can exist also in the absence of allergies, because all people experience these types of defense reactions. So in the case of food allergies specifically, we think that it's a reaction of the immune system to food substances that the body somehow considers to be noxious based on evolutionary history and on the impact of different food compounds on the body. Normally, we think of food allergy as part of the broader food quality control system, which is based not only on the allergic defenses, but also on more familiar aspects of food quality control, such as olfaction, taste, as well as a very complicated gastrointestinal chemosensing system. And in that context, pathological food allergy is an overreaction of this food quality control system. So the reason that this aspect of our biology is underappreciated is because we are accustomed uh, to face the food selection based on something like this, which is various foods that already pre-selected by agricultural revolution, by cooking, by all sorts of selection steps that result in choices like this, which are um, uh, uh, devoid of any specific risks other than metabolic risks if one overdoes it. However, for animals in the wild and for much of our evolutionary history, our food selection looked something like this, where you have to identify what's edible in the environment, which would be only a tiny fraction of plants and only some animals that could be consumed as food. The rest of them are not edible, and most of them would be actually toxic or even deadly if consumed. So therefore, selecting what one can consume is an enormous task faced by all animals, including our ancestors, all the time. And no wonder then that evolution devoted so much to this task, having our gastrointestinal system, having a very powerful immune defenses, as well as its own nervous system that operates to ensure appropriate selection of what can be consumed. And just to give you a sense of how complex that evaluation system is that is required to select what is consumable and what's edible and what's not. This is just a very tiny snapshot of the types of chemicals that are found in foods, even in this case, foods that are perfectly edible. And this is just some examples of chemical complexity present in foods. And what I want to emphasize is that we don't know, it's not known how most of these chemicals actually interact with our body. Some of them are neutral, some of them are maybe beneficial, and many of them are actually harmful, not these particular ones, but present in most diets. And they're harmful because plants generally don't want to be eaten, so they make chemicals to prevent animals from eating them. And that's, I think, is one of the evolutionary root causes for some of the adverse food reactions that we can experience. So therefore, there is a huge problem, computational problem, physiological problem, how to evaluate what's edible and what's not. And that is the system that is at the core of what provides this allergic defenses and food quality control. Some aspects of it, again, are familiar to everyone. Food quality control starts with olfaction. So if something doesn't smell right, we generally don't consume it. And that this is followed by taste perception. If something doesn't taste right, again, we don't consume it. And when I say doesn't smell or taste right, it means in biological terms that there's an indication that it contains something that potentially harmful, and that's why we don't consume it. If the food passes smell test and taste test, it's ingested, but food quality control doesn't stop there, because there is a very sophisticated chemosensing mechanism that operates in the gut that determines the presence of nutrients as well as noxious substances, and communicates these cues to the metabolic endocrine system as well as to the brain to determine whether we feel satiety or pleasure from food, or whether we feel nauseous and have adverse reaction to food. And that helps us decide what is consumed and what's not, and what's the fate of what's consumed, whether it's digested and absorbed, or whether we need to, on the other hand, promote expulsion of something that may contain noxious substances and toxins. And so just to give you a very quick example of some of the things that happen in the gut, and to highlight a couple of findings from FASI team. This is the epithelium of the gut that forms the lining of the intestine, and this would be the lumen of the intestine. And so whatever is ingested ends up here. And there are three major categories of what can be found in the intestine. There is a microbiome, a very complex system of trillions of bacteria that live in the colon mostly. Then there are nutrients that come with diet, and the goal of this whole process is to ingest and absorb the nutrients, to release them from foods and to absorb them. And finally, there are xenobiotics. These are chemicals that come with natural foods, but they are not nutrients. And that's where a lot of evaluation has to go on to determine whether they're toxic to a given animal or not, and what to do about them. And so there is a number of these colorful cells here, which are sensors. This is like molecular antennas that determine what's present in the lumen of the intestine, inside the intestine. And upon sensing different compounds in the intestine, these cells produce signals, gut hormones, for example, that control digestion and absorption, control endocrine response to food. And also there are cells that detect something that potentially harmful, and they produce different class of signals that promote defenses against harmful substances. And that system is exactly what results in allergic defenses and at the extreme in allergic diseases. So here there is a communication of these so-called cytokines made by these sensory cells that interact both with neurons and with other cells in the intestine, producing appropriate types of responses, like controlling peristalsis, for example. And in addition, there is a communication with the central nervous system, and that controls how the animal or humans behave in response to different food composition. So in addition to inducing these barrier defenses in the intestine, there is also avoidance behavior, and the FASI team identified signals that communicate between the immune and nervous system, as well as communicate with the brainstem and control aversive behaviors through these types of signals that are indicated here. So these all provide novel pathways controlling food allergy and food quality control system. And these signals also provide new types of targets that could be potentially used for intervention. So food quality control is an ancient defense system and protects us from harmful substances that normally would be present in foods. It helps us avoid consumption of something that could be harmful in the foods and promotes their expulsion from the intestine, enhanced barrier function, and increased avoidance of the foods that could be potentially problematic. And it's an exaggerated version of this system, we think, is what results in food allergies when it's powered by this incredible sensitivity of the immune system, as well as memory. And so that's what we think is that the biological roots of food allergy. And so again, to answer the question, why do we have food allergies, is the answer, I think, has to do with the fact that selection of the right foods and protection from potentially detrimental components present in natural foods is a live or die decision that animals have to deal with on a daily basis. And therefore, this food quality control system, including allergic component of allergic defense component, is critical for survival in natural settings. And one last point is that the system is actually designed to be prone for false positive errors, meaning that it's rather make a mistake than of reacting to something than making a mistake of not reacting when you need to. Even if when you react, it's something that you don't really need to react. So it's a false positive error. And so the logic here is that better be safe than sorry, and because the cost of making a mistake of not reacting could be deadly, whereas the cost of making a mistake of reacting when you don't need to is just means that you don't consume a particular food, which in natural settings is not a problem because there are always other options. And that's the reason that food allergy is prone to this type of guilty by association errors, where it reacts to something that is not necessarily harmful. So we think that understanding these foundational principles is really key for understanding food allergies, how they happen, why they happen, and what we can do about it. And again, thank you again very much for listening, and happy to take some questions.
Thank you, Ruslan. That was excellent. And you know what I just want to tell our audience here today is this has been previously unknown, and Ruslan had published on it last year, but it's really the foundation as we think about why do we have allergies, why do they develop? Because if we don't understand that, we don't know how to prevent them, and we don't know how to cure them. And it really is fascinating, and that was published in Cell, which is a very high impact journal. But to think that our GI tract is responsible for deciding good or bad, right? Because evolutionary, we would walk out in the woods and eat these plants. And now, you know, unfortunately, we eat a lot of processed food and not the same things. And so that taming of our immune system is probably not happening in the same way.